she said, "Not a word?" I leaned closer and whispered, "Just a kiss." The story opens with the male narrator observing his teacher, a woman in her early 40s, whose presence is at once commanding and quietly gentle. The classroom hums with the soft shuffle of papers and distant murmurs of students, but he finds himself noticing the details others overlook. The way her hand lingers on the chalkboard as she writes, a slight tremor in her fingers that suggests a hidden vulnerability, the soft scent of her perfume, warm, comforting, with a hint of something floral and nostalgic. He notices how she tucks a strand of her hair behind her ear, almost unconsciously, revealing a faint smile that seems meant only for herself. To the narrator, these small, subtle gestures are magnetic. He feels drawn not just to her appearance, but to the calm confidence she radiates. She moves with an ease that commands respect yet invites closeness, balancing authority and warmth in a way that feels rare, almost fragile. Internal conflict begins to simmer. He is aware of the age gap, the boundary between student and teacher, and the social expectations that surround them. And yet, there is an undeniable pull. His attention to her gestures, the way her lips part slightly when she speaks, the quiet steadiness in her voice, becomes an emotional landscape he maps obsessively, each glance leaving a subtle echo in his chest. The tension is not about physical desire, it's about emotional resonance, the fascination that comes from noticing someone fully, from recognizing layers others ignore. The narrator's observations are layered with sensory cues to keep the audience immersed. The chalk dust clings lightly to her fingers, and when she brushes it away, he notices the faint warmth on his own hand if theirs happen to meet briefly. The sound of her voice, soft but firm, resonates differently when she speaks directly to him, a gentle vibration that lingers in his mind long after the words are gone. Even the way she pauses at certain sentences, thoughtfully, almost deliberately, makes him question whether she is aware of the quiet effect she has. Despite the growing fascination, there is hesitation. He feels the weight of the unspoken rules pressing down, the invisible barrier that keeps admiration in the realm of observation rather than action. This internal struggle is crucial for the audience. It builds tension and empathy, allowing viewers to experience the slow burn curiosity and longing from his perspective without crossing into inappropriate territory. By the end of this first part, the audience should feel the magnetic pull between them, a quiet, almost invisible tension that sets the stage for what comes next. He is captivated, respectful, and hesitant, and she, unknowingly, becomes the axis of his quietly intensifying emotions. Every glance, every fleeting brush of hands, and every shared silence hints at a deeper connection waiting to be explored, giving the story a foundation of emotional intimacy that will deepen in the coming parts. The classroom is quieter than usual, a subtle lull between lectures and hallway chatter. It's in these pauses that the narrator begins to notice the small, unspoken ways they connect. Helping her carry a stack of books, he feels the warmth of her hand brushing briefly against his as she steadies a teetering pile. Their fingers don't intertwine, yet the touch leaves an echo, a flutter of awareness he can't shake. These fleeting, innocent contacts build a vocabulary of intimacy and silence, a language only the two of them understand. They exchange smiles over shared notes. A foot nudges his under the table when she wants to correct a minor error, not in annoyance but in gentle playfulness. Her eyes meet his, and in them he catches a trace of amusement, a softness that is reserved and rare, as if she trusts him to notice. The narrator's internal voice registers every flicker of expression, the crinkle at the corner of her eyes, the slight tilt of her head, the way her lips part in an almost imperceptible, private smile. He notices how her presence shifts the energy of a room. When she walks through the corridors, students naturally quiet down, but he observes the subtle details others miss, the scent of her perfume, a mix of jasmine and vanilla, floating lightly in the air, the gentle rhythm of her steps, the way her hand brushes against the edge of a bookshelf. Each detail is a note in a symphony of quiet admiration that plays just for him. There is a growing awareness of the age difference. She carries herself with the calm assurance of life experience, while he approaches her with youthful attentiveness and careful observation. It's in this contrast that the tension blooms. He is drawn to her strength and grace, yet conscious of the invisible barrier that separates them. The audience feels this tension too, sensing the respectful fascination that fuels his quiet admiration. A particularly quiet moment occurs in the library after class. He helps her organize papers, and they end up sitting side by side at a long wooden table. Their shoulders nearly touch. A faint warmth radiates from her arm, and he notices it without daring to move closer. The subtle, almost accidental closeness lingers in the air like an unspoken conversation. She looks at him while speaking, her voice soft, patient, and inviting, and he feels a rare sense of being truly seen. Even routine gestures become charged with meaning, the brush of hands when passing a book, the shared laughter over a scribbled error in notes, the way she tilts her head thoughtfully when listening. These moments establish trust and an emotional intimacy that feels slow and natural, not forced. The audience begins to sense that their connection is more than fleeting curiosity. It is a steady, mutual awareness building layer by layer. By the end of this part, the narrator feels a deeper bond forming. There is warmth, trust, and the early stirrings of romantic tension, all conveyed through gestures, glances, and shared silences. The story is beginning to move beyond observation into a delicate dance of emotional closeness, setting the stage for the playful tension and deeper vulnerability to come. The days in class start to feel charged in ways the narrator barely understands. It's not overtly romantic. There are no declarations, no obvious gestures, yet the energy between them feels different. She teases him in small ways, a raised eyebrow when he forgets a detail, a playful sigh when he struggles with a difficult problem. Her laughter, light and melodic, lingers in the classroom long after it fades, and he finds himself replaying it in his mind, feeling warmth that is almost painful in its intensity. He begins to notice the subtle ways she acknowledges him differently from others. Her gaze lingers just a second longer, a spark of curiosity or amusement in her eyes that seems reserved solely for him. When she moves around the room, he catches fleeting glimpses, her hair falling slightly over her shoulder, the soft sway of her movement, the way she tilts her head thoughtfully as she listens to another student. To the narrator, these details feel intimate, a silent invitation into her private world. Physical gestures, though brief, carry weight. She brushes against his arm accidentally, or so it seems, when passing a stack of papers. He feels a warmth radiate through his skin, a quiet electricity in the contact. Later, when he hands her a notebook, their fingers brush, and the touch lingers longer than necessary. It's enough to make his heart beat faster, yet restrained enough that he cannot misinterpret it. These moments build a vocabulary of closeness that is unspoken, yet profoundly felt. The playfulness extends to verbal exchanges. He responds to her teasing with quiet humor, choosing words carefully to elicit her smile without overstepping boundaries. Their conversations are layered with subtle double meanings, nothing explicit, but enough to make each interaction feel like a delicate game. The audience senses a forbidden attraction, simmering beneath the surface, a tension that is both thrilling and tentative. The narrator's internal monologue is crucial here. He recognizes the draw of her experience and maturity, the calm confidence she embodies, and the rare vulnerability she occasionally lets slip. He struggles to reconcile the magnetic pull he feels with the social and emotional boundaries that surround them. This conflict is subtle but palpable, creating an emotional undercurrent that keeps viewers engaged. Even in silence, the tension is present. A pause in conversation, a shared glance across the classroom, the almost imperceptible brush of her hand against his. These are moments that speak louder than words. The story emphasizes how closeness, restraint, and observation can build intimacy without overt action. The audience begins to feel the slow burn of anticipation. Something unspoken is growing, and both characters are acutely aware of it. By the end of this part, the narrator's fascination deepens into a quiet longing, tempered by respect and caution. The audience should feel the tension, warmth, and playful curiosity that define this stage of their relationship. They are no longer merely observer and observed. They are participants in a delicate, emotional dance, teasing the boundaries of connection without crossing them. The stage is now set for deeper vulnerability in the next part. The classroom lights are dimmer than usual, casting long, gentle shadows across the desks. It's a rare quiet moment after lessons, when most students have left, leaving only the two of them behind. The narrator notices the subtle change in her posture. Her shoulders are slightly slumped, her usual calm demeanor softened by something unspoken. He senses a fragility, a quiet invitation to step closer emotionally, even if he cannot yet cross the boundary physically. She begins to speak in a softer voice, hesitant but deliberate, sharing something personal. Perhaps a small regret from her past, a memory tinged with loneliness, or a fear she rarely admits aloud. The narrator listens intently, feeling a profound sense of intimacy in being trusted with this private piece of her life. He notices the way her fingers trace the edge of a desk as she talks, the slight tremble in her hands, and the way her eyes momentarily dart away before meeting his gaze again, small gestures that speak volumes about her vulnerability. He feels a gentle pull to comfort her, an instinctive desire to offer reassurance. Without words, he shifts slightly closer on the bench beside her, careful to maintain respectful distance. Their shoulders nearly touch, and the warmth of her presence is palpable. His heart beats a little faster, but not in the way of physical desire. It is the resonance of shared humanity, the quiet thrill of being seen and trusted. The narrator's inner voice becomes a guide for the audience, translating the tension into emotional connection rather than physical attraction. He reflects on how rare it is to encounter someone so composed yet willing to show their true self. He recognizes her strength and vulnerability, and his admiration deepens. Each subtle gesture, the brush of her hand against the notebook, the way her hair falls softly over her shoulder, the slight rise and fall of her breathing, becomes a tactile thread in the tapestry of their connection. Their conversation is punctuated by comfortable silences, moments where words are unnecessary, yet the air feels charged with understanding. The narrator feels the weight of unspoken emotions, the awareness that they are sharing something intimate without needing to define it. The audience senses that the bond forming here is far more profound than flirtation. It is emotional attunement, a meeting of minds and hearts across the subtle barriers of age and circumstance. By the end of this part, the emotional intimacy between them is unmistakable. The narrator experiences a new depth of care and empathy for her, and she, in turn, responds to his attentiveness with small gestures of trust, a soft smile, a lingering glance, a gentle nod. The foundation for romantic tension has grown stronger, grounded in genuine understanding and warmth. This segment leaves viewers with a sense of quiet satisfaction and anticipation. The slow burn continues, now fueled not only by curiosity and attraction but by authentic emotional connection, setting the stage for the heightened tension and private moments of risk that will follow in Part 5. The classroom is empty, save for the lingering echoes of students' footsteps fading down the hallway. Afternoon light filters through the tall windows, painting the room in warm golden hues. The atmosphere is thick with a quiet, almost tangible anticipation. It is one of those rare moments when the outside world seems to pause, leaving only the two of them, a perfect stage for emotions that have been simmering beneath the surface. The narrator notices the way her posture subtly shifts in the privacy of the empty room. Her shoulders relax, and there's a softness in her gaze he hasn't seen in public. Every detail draws him in, the faint curve of her smile, the gentle rise and fall of her chest as she breathes, the delicate gesture of her fingers brushing stray strands of hair from her face. The intimacy of the moment is electrifying, but restrained. It is the quiet closeness of people who care deeply without needing to rush or force the connection. He leans slightly closer under the pretense of helping organize papers or adjusting a book on the desk. Their hands almost touch, a near collision of warmth and familiarity. The sensation of her proximity is overwhelming in the most subtle way. The heat from her arm radiates to his, the scent of her perfume floats closer, and for a moment, the world narrows to just the two of them. Neither speaks, and yet the silence vibrates with unspoken questions, desires, and hesitation. The playful tension they shared before becomes more poignant here. He teases lightly, a whisper just above the ambient hum of the empty room. "Not a word?" She shakes her head, a mixture of amusement and restraint in her expression. His heartbeat quickens, and he can't resist a soft, tentative reply. "Just a kiss." It is more than words, it is an invitation, a test of boundaries wrapped in affection and gentle curiosity. The moment lingers, suspended between possibility and propriety. Physical gestures remain minimal yet charged. She allows a subtle touch, a hand hovering near his, a soft brush against his wrist, the brief warmth of her palm against his when passing a notebook. The narrator feels the quiet intimacy of these gestures, the closeness that grows from careful, deliberate restraint. Each motion, each glance, is a conversation of its own, building a rhythm of emotional connection that feels both thrilling and safe. Internal reflection heightens the tension for the audience. He considers the age difference, the boundaries that define their relationship, and the societal expectations hovering just beyond the classroom door. Yet the pull is undeniable. The mix of admiration, attraction, and trust creates a cocktail of emotions he has never experienced before. The audience feels this too, the suspense, the anticipation, and the quiet intensity of the moment. By the end of this part, the story reaches a crescendo of slow-burn tension without crossing into overt physicality. The private setting has allowed their connection to deepen, their attraction acknowledged subtly, and the emotional stakes heightened. The audience is left on the edge of anticipation, feeling the unspoken longing, the respect, and the delicate intimacy that will soon evolve into mutual acknowledgement in Part 6. The day unfolds with a slower rhythm, the classroom bathed in the warm glow of late afternoon sunlight. The narrator feels an unusual lightness, as if the air itself has shifted. Something unspoken has passed between them in prior encounters, a quiet understanding that lingers in every glance and gesture. He notices it immediately. The way she looks at him now carries a gentleness that is deeper than casual attention, a softness previously reserved only for her closest confidences. They find themselves alone once more, this time at her desk as she reviews some papers. He sits nearby, shoulders almost brushing, but neither moves hastily to cross the invisible boundary. Instead, they communicate in small, deliberate gestures. Her hand briefly rests near his on the desk, fingers grazing lightly, sending a subtle current of warmth and awareness. He feels her proximity not as a temptation, but as a tender reassurance that the emotional connection they've built is mutual and real. The narrator's internal thoughts convey the gravity of the moment for the audience. He acknowledges the age difference, the societal expectations, and the professional boundaries, yet he also feels the undeniable depth of their bond. It is not lust but admiration, respect, and quiet affection that fuel the intimacy between them. The audience senses that this acknowledgement is a milestone, a point where longing, care, and trust converge into a mutual recognition of something precious and rare. Her eyes meet his, holding his gaze longer than usual. There is a silent question there, a testing of waters, and he responds with a soft smile, steadying the moment with patience and sincerity. In the gentle pressure of her hand near his, in the way her shoulder brushes against his in passing, there is a promise of understanding. Their emotions are mirrored, acknowledged, and safe. The subtlety of these gestures heightens the intimacy, making each small movement resonate with meaning. Even casual touches take on new weight. A brush of her fingers against his arm when handing him a notebook, a shared laugh that causes their shoulders to bump lightly, a fleeting, warm glance that lingers just a moment longer. All of these gestures communicate affection, reassurance, and desire without words. The audience feels the magnetic pull, yet the restraint makes the connection feel authentic, tender, and emotionally satisfying. By the end of this part, both characters are fully aware of their mutual attraction. There is no rush, no overt declarations, only the recognition that their connection exists. It is reciprocal, and it is precious. The tension of the previous parts resolves into warmth, shared understanding, and a sense of quiet joy. The slow burn has matured into an emotional bond that is as satisfying as it is delicate. The audience is left with a sense of fulfillment, knowing that the emotional stakes have been met, desire has been acknowledged, respect preserved, and the foundation for lasting intimacy solidified. The stage is now perfectly set for Part 7, the warm resolution, where the story closes with hope, subtle affection, and a lasting sense of connection. The classroom feels different now. Sunlight streams through the windows, casting soft patterns across the floor, the desks, and the familiar objects that have witnessed the slow unfolding of their connection. The narrator senses the subtle shift in energy, a calm, quiet warmth that fills the space whenever she is near. It is not just the physical presence, but the emotional resonance that lingers, the knowledge that the trust, understanding, and affection they have built is mutual and enduring. He watches her from across the room, noticing how effortlessly she moves, still commanding the space with the same grace, but with a softness that now seems fully shared with him. She catches his gaze and smiles, not the fleeting, curious smile of earlier encounters, but a gentle, knowing expression that conveys everything words cannot. It is an acknowledgement of their shared journey, a quiet affirmation that the slow-burn tension, the trust, and the vulnerability they have nurtured have created something enduring. Physical gestures remain tender and subtle, yet their significance is magnified by the emotional context. A hand resting lightly on the small of his back as they straighten chairs together, a soft brush of fingers while passing a book, the way their shoulders graze when they laugh at a private joke, each touch carries the weight of intimacy and mutual respect. There is no need for grand declarations. The quiet language of touch and presence speaks volumes. The narrator reflects internally, allowing the audience to inhabit his perspective. He feels gratitude, admiration, and a deep sense of emotional fulfillment. The connection they share is not only about attraction but about recognition, trust, and understanding. The warmth of her presence, the steadiness of her gaze, and the subtle rhythm of shared gestures reassure him that what they have is authentic, mutual, and safe. Even ordinary moments feel extraordinary. Sitting side by side as she reviews a paper, their legs occasionally brushing under the table, he notices the faint scent of her perfume, the gentle cadence of her voice, and the unspoken comfort of simply being near her. The audience experiences these sensory cues as windows into the emotional intimacy that has been painstakingly built over time. Each glance, touch, and silence carries layers of meaning, making the mundane feel tenderly charged. By the conclusion of the story, the audience sees a fully realized emotional bond. The age difference, the societal expectations, and the initial hesitation have all been respected and carefully navigated, leaving a connection that feels authentic, satisfying, and believable. Their gestures, hand touches, lingering glances, shared laughter, are not fleeting sparks but enduring symbols of a quietly flourishing romance. The story closes on a note of gentle hope and lasting warmth. The narrator's inner voice reflects on the journey, the curiosity that became admiration, the playfulness that became trust, and the tension that transformed into shared intimacy. There is no cliffhanger, only a sense of emotional completeness, leaving the audience with the comforting knowledge that their bond will continue to grow, grounded in respect, affection, and understanding.